and myself, Urvi. And essentially, it is our dream to build nature-rich futures for ourselves, but as well, the rich and the life-sustaining biodiversity that we are so very lucky to share our planet with. Before I introduce the moderator of this session, EkoGalaxy begins each and every session with an acknowledgement. The land on which we gather, and perhaps the land on which many of us live, once belonged to our city's rocks, trees, insects, birds, and countless other living beings that are indigenous to this land. We acknowledge this in the spirit of solidarity, humility, and a respect for our shared existence on the planet. All right, so the second session of day 2 of Climate Conversations is Wild Adventures, Incredible Stories from the Field. It's a panel discussion with a very, very, very exciting range of speakers, each with diverse and important field experience, and I won't stay long between you and the incredible stories we're about to hear. Please allow me to introduce the moderator for the discussion, Farida Tampal. Farida is clearly much loved. She is also the State Director of WWF India of both Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. She conducts trainings for the All India Service and State Service officers and other government employees on biodiversity, wildlife conservation, climate change, and the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. Similarly, she's mentored several youth groups and individuals who joined WWF as interns and now pursue wildlife biology as a career. One of her pioneering initiatives has been the introduction of renewable energy to improve water management in the forest areas to benefit both the wildlife as well as local tribal communities. Farida and WWF, welcome back to Climate Conversations. Thank you for taking us into the heart of today's wild adventures, and thank you so much to the panelists and all the audience for being here. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Urvi. Thank you, Shreyas, for having me back again. It's a great initiative. And I think the previous session was like pretty, I would say, little intense, and also maybe, making us think that, what are we doing to this planet Earth? But now we have some incredible stories that we will hear, because something about being positive. There is a lot of scope for us to improve, and I think as human beings, if we can undo it, we can also do it well and do it, make this planet a better place to live in. So today we have with us 4 very interesting panelists with very different field experiences from different parts of India. We have Kobita Das, whom I will introduce later. Then we have Dr. Ravi Chellam, Dr. Rohit Chakravarty, and of course, Sujeeth, whom I'm also meeting for the first time, Sujeeth Anne. So we will just straight away get into it, because I think we are a bit behind schedule and I have to make up for the time, but I hope Urvi and Shreyas will allow me that extra 10 minutes because we lost that time in the morning. So today's session is, as Urvi has already said, Wild Adventures, Incredible Stories from the Field. These are not adventures that you read from the books or watch on the television. These are actually lived adventures from the grasslands, from the caves, from the forests and the streets and cities of India. So what makes it special today, coming from different worlds, plants and animals, plants and lions, insects and people. We have lions, we have bats of the night, and learning directly from nature without any formal classroom. So let's start with how this whole journey begins. So Kobita Das Kolli, she's a naturalist and a biodiversity educator. She's an amateur naturalist and independent researcher documenting the flora and small fauna of rocky outcrops and mixed deciduous forests in and around Hyderabad. She's happy to share her findings as well as her appreciation from the natural world on walks, talks, and social media. She has been guiding nature activity class along with our very dear Sadhana Ramachandar. I think she's somewhere in the audience at Vidyaranya for more than 2 decades. She's an occasional illustrator and designed at Titan Watches Limited in the 90s. That I did not know, Kobita. She's a graduate in plant science with an MPhil in plant physiology. And if any one of you is a friend on her social media page with you, these posts are a delight to read. And I am part of KFC. I told her that. Do you know what is KFC? Not those horrible crispy fried chickens, but Kobita fan club. So I'm one big part of that. So, Kobita, question to you. Kobita, many people think plants are silent and boring. Insects are easy to ignore, creepy crawlies as everybody calls them, but you have shown that they have fascinating stories to tell. So how did your journey begin, and what was the moment when you realized plants are anything but boring?
Well, I'm an only child, so my constant companions were the, plants and the little creatures of the garden and the places around me. And I happened to study plant sciences, a lot of interest only in that sphere, I think, at that time. And then, of course, I digressed into design. But my inspiration for design also came from nature. It was very easy because I had spent so much time in, in nature, surrounded by all these little insects and plants. So after I came to University of Hyderabad, I was fascinated by the landscape of Hyderabad. I've never seen anything like this. I've grown up in Chennai and Bangalore. And I immediately wanted to document the flora, but work got in the way. Finally, I think the journey kind of started when child grew up and left home, and we had time on hand, and we started. We used to do tree walks for the children in school every year, and the tree walk started out, in fact, during HLF when it was in HPS. And simultaneously, I was also doing some documentation, very little at that time, but I had started, and I was absolutely fascinated by the flora on the rocks, and not a lot was known about them in the public sphere. So, I kind of just delved into it, spent a lot of time. It takes years actually to sort of, study these ephemeral species. So basically that's how it began. And then with the tree walks, we started introducing people to the flora. I particularly wanted to deal with flora. One, it's my passion. Secondly, it's the basis of life, right? So you cannot have anything in, beyond that unless this base is there. And I enjoy to finding those interactions, and enjoy learning about how they support the other trophic levels, and how the trophic levels are dependent on them, and what they do for us actually, for our well-being and for the landscape. So that's how it started.
So from insects, we can move on to a very iconic animal, which could have been the national animal of India, but unfortunately, it was not. So we have Dr. Ravi Chellam, an old friend of mine, as in age and also tenure-wise, we've known longest time for each other. But Ravi Chellam is a wildlife biologist and conservation scientist with a PhD on Asiatic lions in Gir. He has played a key role in lion conservation, including serving as an expert advisor to the Forest Bench of Supreme Court of India, which ordered the translocation of lions from Gir to Kuno, and we're not going to talk about it. He has held leadership roles at the Wildlife Institute of India, UNDP, A-Tree, WCS, which is Wildlife Conservation Society, Greenpeace, and currently he's a CEO of MetaString Foundation, professor at the University of Transdisciplinary Health Sciences and Technology, which is called TDU in short, right? And also coordinator of the Biodiversity Collaborative. He champions evidence-based conservation, something which we really, really need. So, Ravi, you've spent decades in the field studying wildlife, especially Asiatic lions. So what first drew you to this lions, and how did the journey shape what you see, the way you see conservation today?
Well, I'm the eldest son of four, a child of the early 60s. And at that point of time, wildlife as a career was nowhere known. In fact, very little was even available on Indian wildlife. There used to be a magazine called Illustrated Weekly, and every October for the Wildlife Week, there would be some stuff out there. Reader's Digest used to have an occasional article, but my father had a job which required him to get newspapers from around the country, and one of which was Statesman, and it had the great naturalist M. Krishnan's My Country Notebook column. So that was really the kind of source of information. But it was all of interest, but never as a way of, I never envisioned that I would spend 4 decades and more doing this kind of work. My father's father was a great believer that medicine was the only noble profession. And so it was, I wouldn't call it pressure, but some process of osmosis, I was kind of guided and gently goaded to study medicine. I got 96%, but still that was not good enough, thankfully. So I didn't get admission into medicine. And ended up doing a BSc in botany, which killed all my interest in science. It was badly taught. And I was actively playing cricket, so I was seriously considering cricket as a career option. This is now 78 to 81, 82. Luckily, the local WWF office and my cricket club shared space. So I could meet the state administrator, Preston Ahimas, and through him kind of started going out into the field and realized that this is something I enjoyed. They used to run WWF, unfortunately they've stopped it, used to run twice a year, summer and winter camps for 4 to 5 weeks, and children from all over the country would come. And I was recruited as a volunteer because of my botany background. And again, that's how I got exposed to a lot of wildlife, Mudumalai, Anamalais, Point Calamare, and all those places. In one such camp, I saw 3 people out in the field with notepads and binoculars, and I was curious. I went up and spoke to them. They said they were doing MSc in wildlife biology. And then the coin dropped. My parents were good enough to allow me to, I was a marketing executive. For 2 years, I was selling industrial and textile chemicals. And it was a good life, 81 to 83. I mean, I was living at home. The office was just 10 minutes TVS 50 ride away. I could go home, have lunch, have a 10-minute nap, go back to work, and I was getting money. I mean, and playing cricket. So it was all good, but my parents were very clear that I had to at least do a master's, and then I ended up doing MSc wildlife biology. Once you start something like that, there's no turning back. You have to, find your way. But the other interesting thing was comics like Phantom and Tarzan, ecologically inaccurate as they are, but they still had a great role in kind of shaping my thinking. And intuitively, right from a child, be it gardening or composting or dealing with cats and dogs and buffaloes and cows and donkeys on the road, I just felt very comfortable with animals. To cut a long story short, choosing the lions as my PhD topic, there was about 10% of personal choice, 90% was purely accidental, because I belong to the first batch of researchers recruited by Wildlife Institute of India. There were about 8 or 10 projects that were advertised. We could all apply for up to 3 projects. Lion was one of that. Fortunately, I seem to have done well. They gave me the choice. You choose whichever project you want. And I got into this research not because I thought I'll be a great scientist, but I saw science as a way of doing conservation. For a brief point, I also toyed with trying to become an Indian Forest Service officer, but that I knew my personality wouldn't fit that kind of mold. And that's the origin story.
That sounds fascinating. In fact, when I joined the Madras Crocodile Bank, and Zai is over here, I went back home, which I am hail from Bombay, and I was asked, now what next that you finish your master's? I said, oh, I have a job at the Madras Crocodile Bank. And they were very happy because from the community I come, a lot of people join banks and are in the financial sector. So they said, oh, so you are going to be in an international bank. I said, no, I'm going to be in a bank which researches reptiles, and they were not very happy about that. So Rohit, moving to you, from lions and from crocodile bank to an animal of the night, right? So Rohit Chakravarty, as you all know, and I think you had a fantastic talk by him yesterday. He's a bat researcher working with Nature Conservation Foundation and Bat Conservation International. Over the past decade, he has studied the bats of Andaman Islands and Uttarakhand, and currently he leads a project related to bat conservation in India. He's passionate about speaking and campaigning from bats, and rightly so. Today, early morning in the Hindu, there's a big newspaper about the Nipah virus in Calcutta. So, I was wondering what's happening. So finally, bats are often misunderstood creature, which I love. Do you remember your first encounter with them, and what made you go deeply into studying bats?
So I grew up in Nagpur, and I got interested in wildlife when I was in my 9th standard. Prior to that, there was a whole series of things. I was just another kid playing cricket in front of my house, in the school, etc., with no clear motivation of where this is going. But in 9th standard, there is only one way in which every Nagpuri gets interested in wildlife, which is by watching a tiger. And that's what happened with me and my brother. We saw a tiger for the first time. That got us interested in wildlife. Then slowly the interest started shifting from tiger, which is an animal which sleeps half the day, then there's nothing to watch in that. So we started watching birds, which are more colorful, more active. There's a lot more species to look at. So my brother and I both got interested in wildlife together. We both started watching birds together. But the problem was, so during this time was when we also started a local NGO with some school friends, not like a registered NGO, but a group of people. And that was when people started contacting us for wildlife that they found in a helpless state. And one of those was a bat, which came to us as a rescue, which was entangled in a manja. So that's how I saw the animal for the first time, and everything that I had heard about the animal suddenly became untrue, because this animal was in my hand, not biting me, not going after my hair, not going after my eyes, and all it was doing was eating bananas and mangoes from my hand. So, so that was, but that interest was, so the interest got triggered, but it was still not enough to overpower the bird interest. And then what happened was, when I moved to Bombay for my graduation, suddenly the forest had become much denser compared to Nagpur. So you had to listen to birds. And when I was watching birds with other people, I realized that I have a hearing problem. And I really, you will notice, I can't hear a lot of things. So I can't hear a lot of birds which call in relatively higher frequencies. And then I was like, I can't be a good bird watcher, I can't be a good bird researcher. I need to shift to something else. And then the natural choice was an animal that, none of us can hear. And that interest in bats came back. They took me to caves, they took me to forests at night, and after that, there was really no looking back. From the end of my bachelor's till now, I've stuck with bats, and I think it'll go on for the foreseeable future.
I think we have a group of volunteers which we have in Hyderabad, and just yesterday, one of the volunteers has posted a post saying that he is wanting to study bat roosting sites in Hyderabad, and he's running a survey to ask people to fill in those. So I don't know if Soumyajit Singh is here, but he's running this, and I was very happy that finally you have people talking about anything other than birds and maybe other creatures. So coming to you, Sujeeth, glad to meet you. I think I'm meeting you for the first time and would love to know more about you. I understand you're a self-taught conservationist and a naturalist. You run an organization called Founder of Meraki, right? And he rescues a lot of turtles, tortoises, and other animals. rehabilitates them and releases them into the wild. So I think that's, very often people keep asking, whom do I contact and how do we do it? How do we rescue this snake or a bird stuck in a manja? So that's been happening a lot. So organizations like you are very precious. You respond very quickly and in time. So thank you for that. So would you like to tell us, like, how did the outdoors become your classroom? How did you teach yourself and how do you take this journey forward?
So, first of all, I mean, what's wrong with you? You are all here for turtles, tortoises, and bats in a Sunday afternoon. I mean, like, that's a very big change. Literally, I would like to heartfully congratulate you all here to learn about turtles, tortoises, bats. Lions, it's okay, fine, but turtles and tortoise bats, and literally feeling proud to be part of this panel as well. And thank you so much for the opportunity as well. And this thing, the turtles and tortoises, or even how to become a naturalist. I think I was in 6th or 7th standard when my class teacher started asking every student in the class, saying that, what you want to become? Everybody, doctor, lawyers, big professions. And I said, I want to become a naturalist, because I used to see Sir David Attenborough's documentaries when I was a kid. So she literally stopped the class, she went back to the dictionary, and I think she is the first time she heard a word called naturalist. Maybe she went back to the class and then she called me to the class. Okay, you asked in front of me, everybody. I couldn't answer because I don't know the fact. So there is no university that's going to teach you how to become a naturalist, and there is no institute that's going to make you a conservationist. It's all up on you. And based on what interest that I have, she's been seeing that I already rescued a couple of bats in my class and birds here and there, insects and all. You're already in a right track. But there is sadly, I couldn't refer you to anyone who could do you. There's no one here in my town or something like. So that, and I think it's in 1996, I guess. I'm still young. So it sounds like old, but I'm still young. So yeah, back in the days, I think one of my shepherd who is nearby my town, so he brought a turtle to my home. So then my father said, my kid is interested in all these creatures, he would be falling in love with. And definitely, I'm a kind of guy who used to bunk school and tuitions, and I used to go right in front of these nalas, right? And watch the big frogs and their tadpoles. I used to catch them thinking that they are fishes, and I used to bring home. And then, this creature, turtle, literally fascinated me. And then that is an Indian flapshell turtle, which most of you might have seen somewhere else usually. So after that, then I came to see, I asked them, I want to see more of these guys. And that shepherd told me, these flapshell turtles and all, they live in a river or water bodies. We cannot find them when we wanted to. I'll take you to the nearby woods where I could show you a land turtle. Turtle. In Telugu, we call them tabelu, anything. So, yeah, he took me to the wild, and I was just a 9 or 10 years old kid back then. It was my summer holidays, and we have very hot summers in Kottagudem. So we went for 3 to 4 days straight, and still we didn't find any tortoise. But one water puddle, he showed me pug marks of turtle going to the water and coming back. Then, if I would have seen the star tortoise right away that very day, maybe that would be end of that. I didn't see the tortoise. I see the behaviors of coming and going. That literally triggered me. And slowly what it happened is, when I was talking that I saw tortoise, I saw the pug marks and all, people unknowingly started, whenever they see a turtle, sadly they used to bring from the river to me, just to show the turtle that they find for me and all. So then after what I realized, in the nearby lakes and ponds, in the summer season, what happens when all the streams dry up, all these turtles in the paddy fields, they'll climb up to the paddy fields and they'll stay there for the rest of the summer, because the water is there for all summer. So then, during the June season, when the monsoons trigger, they used to plow and all. So most of these turtles and tortoises get badly injured, or even they'll get killed by this unknown effort. So most of the people, I used to start their entire season when I get a holiday, and when they see any injured turtle, which is so badly, I used to give to them. I never asked what they're going to do with it. Mostly they'll eat it. Sadly, yes, there are people who eat turtles and tortoises. That's part of their diet. And for the little injured animals and all, I used to take them and release them back to the wild. And unknowingly, these turtles and tortoise thing, I do so many things beyond turtles and tortoises, but unknowingly this built a reputation around me, and I started inquiring after my graduation. I tried to reach so many organizations that I want to do, because in Peninsula, nobody talks about turtles and tortoises. We have all the fancy animals, but they never used to do that. So I started advocating turtles and tortoises. Yeah, that's how I become a naturalist, that's how I become a conservationist, and now we, as an individual, I rescued 9,000 plus turtles and tortoises across the country, and I was also part of, thank you so much, and I was also part of so many breeding programs that are happening in the country. There are so many turtles and tortoises that are critically endangered, and more than me, there are so many institutions, organizations that already did so much work in turtle conservation, but mostly they do it in Gangetic Plains or northeast area. But in the peninsula also, we have so much opportunities and so much scope for turtle conservation here in Telangana and other places as well. Thank you so much.
So Sujeeth, like your turtle and tortoise stories are pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
When you have been going around, maybe mostly in Kothagudam,
Yeah.
mining area,
Yes.
horribly dry,
Yeah.
lots of dust. So you must have come across other wildlife also. So what is that one species you went looking for turtles and something you came across something very totally different and which really fascinated you? So you have any
Yes.
incredible story to tell us about from
Exactly.
the wild?
So there's so many fascinating stories that I would love to share, and some of them are like pangolins and honey badgers. Even if you ask any researcher or scientist who's in the field for so many decades, they won't get to see a pangolin, or it's not an animal that you just go and sadly, pangolins are one of the most poached animal in the world. They stand first in because they're sorted out because of rhinos they poach for them horns, and pangolins they poach for their scales and all. So they are the only mammal that have scales on its body. So in the very recent times, like WTI developed the intelligence, and we've been tracking those smugglers and poachers for almost 6 to 7 months, and then we came to know that in the Etur Nagaram division and in my hometown, we have these poachers who are actively working, and they have from tigers to any animal they'll poach, and they have a huge network that is crossing the national borders. So then we developed the intelligence, we worked on these fellows, and we tracked them. And then 3 live pangolins have been confiscated. And literally, I was going as a spy to this thing, and they are literally charging 18 lakhs or 20 lakhs for one specimen, because one is like 15 kgs big, large animals they are. So there are some inspiring good stories as well, and when we do all these things in a frontline conservation, when we get to see some distressing stories as well, these animals, not just in means of abuse, we know the importance of the ecology. One means, as Farida already said, mining is a big thing that happening, and obviously with these electricity is also a byproduct of that, and there's no doubt about it. At the very same time, these honey badgers, and I get to see so many animals, right, I would love to share. But pangolins, yeah, that's an interesting story where we confiscated them. Live animals we brought usually way before, it's way too late for us to get to the animal, and it's already dead or poached, and we only get to see the scales or something. But pangolins is literally one good animal that we saw, and I was part of more than 7 to 8 pangolin rescues. And in northern Gangetic Plains, me and my team, extended team, we used to rescue these river dolphins as well. We have them in UP. So in the summer season, they used to come and strangled in the canals, irrigation canals. And then I would love to tell you, one case that it was very hard for us to catch locate the animal, the Gangetic dolphin. We located it. While transporting, sometimes you do so many good things, but still you don't forget about appreciation, but literally that support, initial support that we want from the people around us and the communities and even from the government. That day I felt like we are having a Z category security. I believe 10 vehicles forward and 10 vehicles further and backward, and we will literally have these sirens and all. We are carrying this live dolphin in our back, and then we are taking it back to the river. And the moment when we release the animal, right, the happiness that we, frontline conservationists have, that beyond anything that we have. Yeah, thank you so much. I think this is, yeah.
Yeah, actually, we know very little about pangolins. There's a lot of trade happening, and that's one. I'm glad that you are also looking at this particular animal. So coming to Kobita, I want you to share some field story where a plant or an insect has completely surprised you. I know you have a lot of surprising stories to tell, a lot of incredible ones, but just share one of those moments when, which also taught you an important lesson, or it was very fascinating for you yourself.
So we were out during the monsoons trying to document the flora on the rocks. and just idly looking, actually we were looking for Drosera, the insectivorous plants. And while doing that, I spied a very slim, slender leaf. And I went around the rock to look at this plant better, and then I saw the bloom. It was a Ceropegia. If any of you know, it's called the candle plant. It's got this very fascinating flower, which is bulbous at the base and extended. So that's the corolla. It's like a tube, and it's a bulbous thing. And the top, actually, of this particular Ceropegia is very beautiful. It ends in a spiral. The tips of the petals, if you can imagine, are thin, and it's twisted like this and attached at the top. So it was just, what a find. And I had never expected to see this on the rocks. And then, you know, going and reading up about it. But that moment was just, you know, sort of so brilliant. Just sat with it, stunned to find and admiring its beauty. But I went back several times because, you know, I had read about the biology of this flower. So it has a very interesting pollination mechanism where little flies are attracted by this, you know, yeah, very amazing structure. It has little hairs on it, the petals. If you look at it, it's really unique. I wish I could show it to you, but sometime. So the movement of those hairs and the mild smell, it has a very off smell. Not that I know personally, but that's what is said of Ceropegia flowers. But it's too small to, you know, bend down inside the rocks and smell it. But clearly the flies are attracted. So these are very tiny flies, a particular species, but they're all the same. They're attracted to this, and they come to the flower, they're whizzing around there, and then slowly alight, and they're walking around. And the center of the flower, there's this hole, which is, you know, got little hairs all pointing downwards. It's covered with hairs. And this flies, they slide in. They go to the edge and they just drop in. So you may think it's an insectivorous plant, but it's not. The flies are actually pollinators. So they're drawn in. The flower actually sort of, you know, fools them into, you know, thinking it's some carrion, basically. So they drop inside because the hairs are all downward pointing, so they lose their footing. They drop in, and inside what is fascinating is this chamber is bloated. It's like a bulb-like chamber. It's small, of course. The fly feels quite at home, actually. It's trapped inside, but at the same time, it's kept active. Why? Because the walls of the flower are transparent. So light comes in, and they're, you know, whizzing around inside, and I actually have a video of them, you know, whizzing around inside there, and the nectar is there to keep them alive. So they can stay in there for quite a bit. So it's a very tricky pollination mechanism, not at all like, you know, what you've heard, typical pollen grains and stuff. So these anthers, actually the pollinia, the little lung-shaped little structures with a hook on them, and they are actually hidden. And the flies whizzing around trying to figure out what they're going to do or to escape, they come in touch with this, and somehow inadvertently, it doesn't snag on their feet, but it snags on the tip of their snout. I don't know what the part is, sorry, but it snags there. And I didn't realize, the story goes that typically Ceropegias trap these pollinators, and the pollinator most probably would have brought in pollen from elsewhere. So the female stage of the flower is actually active at that point when the flies enter. And then later, when the flower is drooping or beginning to droop, that's when the male anthesis, as we call it, takes place, when the male part of this flower actually releases the pollen. And with that, the fly will leave. But how does that happen? So it is said that when the flower actually turns over and sort of droops, you know, when it's dying, that's when the flies can escape. But hours of sitting there in the heat, you know, sort of looking for these creatures and see what they're doing, I found that they actually escape by mid-morning. By around 11, they're actually able to clamber out. And I saw them coming out with this pollinia stuck to their snout. It's amazing, really. And to think that, you know, this is one among the many fascinating plants that we have in the rocky landscape, and they're hidden, and most people don't see them. That's because they're ephemeral plants. They only occur during the monsoons, and they have this, very brilliant, most of the plants have brilliant mechanisms of tiding over our 8 months of dry season. So that's another story. But this was one of the fascinating species.
That sounds really, I'm sure there's a lot of documentation that you did for it. And I remember when we were walking in the KBR park and you saw Sanjeevani and you were like jumping with joy because, suddenly it was there in that rock. So that's Kobita for you. You should go on a walk with her, actually. So coming to Ravi, you have done a lot of field work with large mammals and it is never predictable. Can you tell a moment in the field that made your heart race? And then how is it working with the communities who live behind this nearless lions as against the communities who are in the city? So what is that one moment that, really has a story to tell?
Well, you asked me about 3 questions, so I don't think I can answer it as one moment. But just a slight correction. The lion actually was India's first national animal. Between 1952 and 1972, for 2 decades, the lion was the national animal of India because of the symbolism and the national emblem and all of that. And with the decision to launch Project Tiger in 72-73, that's when the tiger replaced the lion as the national animal. To answer your question, to me, large cats, unlike most people today, my introduction to wildlife was fairly late. We didn't belong to a family which went on vacations to wildlife areas, or we don't have a hunting background and things like that. Only after I started working with Preston was my introduction to wildlife. It took me 13 years to see my first wild tiger. I started going into the forest in 1980. 1993 was my first wild tiger. Of course, lions and leopards run into hundreds of sightings. My first lion sighting was the first time I came close to a large cat, or rather the large cat came close to me. I was walking on my recce, and this was December of 85, so about 40 years ago now. And first 3 days, we saw pug marks, we heard them roar, there was cats, there were kill remains, but there was no live lion. And I quit a marketing job, and I was wondering what was I doing. If I can't see my animal, how am I going to research the animal? Last evening, walking back, 6:30 in the evening, suddenly out of the bush about 100 meters ahead of us, 4 lions jumped onto the road. And I turned to my little village boy guide and said, what should we do in Hindi? And he just said this. So, okay, keep quiet. But the lions kept coming, and I was nervous. I kept glancing, and this guy was completely relaxed. And the lions came to the distance where Dr. Amani is sitting, when I realized I had binoculars, cameras, all hanging from my neck, and I hadn't put them to use. So we don't have the ability of projecting the slide. I have this one slide, 3 lions are already gone, of a lion retreating. I have the rear side of the lion. But I'm very proud of that because it was my first picture, but and also a tremendous introduction to what the species is. Since then, I've sat with lions roaring at me, feeling its bad breath and spittle on my face. I have a photograph of my own shadow and a lion sleeping. These are wild lions. These are by no means domestic. Don't ever try to do the silly things I did. I was young. I was not married. There are a lot of things going there. But these are wild lions who can bring down nilgais, sambar, buffaloes, and getting hold of me would have been child's play for it. One leap and I would be gone. But they also know how to coexist with people as much as the local people in that landscape know how to coexist with. And that's the magic of India. Unfortunately, official conservation policy has forgotten that, and it believes in separating people and wildlife. You draw lines on maps and say that's wildlife habitat and people can't stay there, and you move the people out. But what happens when 50% of your tigers or 60% of your lions are not within the protected area? They're outside the protected area. How are you going to deal with that? But I'm digressing. Thank you.
When we start off there, then it's a different session altogether. So Rohit, over to you. Which was your most fascinating time when you saw the bat, or what did you do after that, and any unforgettable night in the field that you think stays with you?
Okay, so best and unforgettable are two different situations here. But anyway, I think, okay, I'll, for the sake of time, I'll focus on this one, where if for whoever was in my talk yesterday, I showed a photograph of a bat that we discovered recently. So I think that was one of the most memorable times in the field, and it came at, so the story behind that is that the first time we caught it, the first time I caught that bat was in 2016. And at that time, just getting used to so many different species of bats, I had no clue, and we didn't have any permissions to collect specimens at that time. So, so we were seeing the animal, collecting all the data and letting it go. In 2016, when I saw that animal, compared it to everything else, it felt like it was something different, but, maybe not all that different. And then we took a blood sample from the animal, which we had permissions for. The genetics showed that, it's completely different. It's completely different from all the known species that have been sequenced so far. So, of course, there is a chance that, species is there, but has the DNA sequence is not available. So, but then, it was still a good indication that this is a species that could potentially be new. So then I went back, so this was 2016-17 that I'm talking about. For the next 4 years, when I knew what I was looking for, the bat never got caught. So 2017 went away, 2018 went away, 19, then finally COVID happened, then 21, the third last night of my sampling for that season was when, we weren't really catching many things at that time, but then suddenly my field assistants, also were beginning to learn how to identify bats. It took them a long time because, these are animals that are only marginally different from each other. So then this field assistant comes back with a bat and he says ki, kuch to alag lag raha hai, but matlab samajh nahi aa raha hai, ab dekho ek baar. So then I took a look at this bat, and so I'm from Nagpur, but some elements of my vocabulary are very Delhi. And you probably know what I'm getting at. There's a particular word that, people in Delhi throw around in their conversation quite often as an expression, which I do as well. So the moment I took the bat out of the bag, that was the first word I said. And I said it multiple times because I knew, okay, this is what we are looking for. And then, sure enough, we collected that bat, and now it's a new species. So that was the most memorable sighting.
Great. So then that brings to you, Sujeeth. You can see that there are a lot of different people from different backgrounds sitting here. Some of them are youngsters.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they also want to do what you do and each one of us do over here. So what would your message be to them? How can they, start becoming awed by nature? How can they start exploring nature? How can they make slightly more effort to go out there into the open? Because I always say that the best biology classroom can be taught outside and not inside the class. So
Definitely it's outside, but you don't have to go to a national park or somewhere else to become a naturalist or conservationist. For me, it all started where my granny's backyard. Right? That's where you started. I mean, you have some plants, jasmines, chrysanthemums and other all. You'll see some flies flying by, you'll see some dragonflies go by, you can see, and start recognizing the species level. Right away, you may not go to the right species level, at least start to differentiate between a moth and a butterfly and a bee and a wasp. Start doing that. And today, to become a naturalist is quite easy. I mean, I'm so sorry, it's so difficult as well, but yet it is little easy because you can take a picture of any animal and you can ask Google, it will tell you. 100 times it may not be right answer, but sometimes, yes, it does. And there are today so many institutions that are making young naturalists, and there are many courses that has developed to become a naturalist and all. And conservation, I don't feel like conservation is Farida's profession or Sujeeth's passion. For conservation, it is each and every individual's must and should action plan. Today you wake up, you brush your teeth, you comb your hair. Same way the conservation should be your day-to-day life part. You should question yourself. You pay taxes for everything but not air, at least for now. So think in that way, with every inhale and exhale, you are somehow, in Telugu we call it runam, you are like in debt to something or someone else. So that's how we are doing that. So to become a conservationist, definitely you don't need a rocket science. And this is all natural things. I mean, you can find million things in and around. I become a naturalist and I was being with the turtles and tortoises, my association. And you can choose different. Rohit has bats, and there are 1,001 animals and creatures that need your attention. I always tell this, there is difference between charismatic species and least known species. So not everyone has to be back of lions, tigers, and charismatic species. I personally feel sorry for the people who are working on them, but still, I'm sorry, my sincere apologies. Yet what I wanted to tell you is to understand that even, from tiger to beetle, the casual dung beetle also has that much of importance in this ecosystem. I want you people to understand that nature doesn't mean that, an ice-carved mountain or lagoon, people spending lakhs and if not crores in tourism or nature-related tourism and all. It's in your backyard, people. I mean, do not differentiate you between nature. You are nature, realize that. You are an ecosystem for millions of beings inside your body. We have gut bacteria, we have some insects living, creatures living on our head to toe. There's so many. We are a national park for so many endangered species. Realize that. I mean, we are nature. Don't try to segregate yourself from nature, right? Do not segregate yourself from nature. You are nature, and start conserving yourself too, and start conserving the nature as well. So it's in a present day world, it's quite easy to become a naturalist. And as jokes apart, and if you are serious about this, and there are so many career opportunities that are open. Hopefully, some people will hire me as well after this. I'm jobless till now, so some people might hire me. So, there are so many opportunities, and there's so many organizations coming, and so many good, very well-established companies are trying to fund this, your good work. So there's so much opportunities and windows, and there is no age factor for you to become a naturalist or conservationist, regardless your age, regardless your gender, regardless your profession. I am a hotel management guy by profession. I used to work 9 to 5. I've been, as a professional chef, I worked in this Hyderabad. So it's quite easy to become a naturalist and conservationist. I know the journey will be literally tough and it's hard. You have so many day-to-day things and to come over that. Yet, there are so many institutions. I hope, with everyone, you can become a naturalist and conservationist with a little zeal and passion that you have personally. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Sujeeth. That was a very strong pitch, I must say, for the gut bacteria and for everything, as well as for a job, fauna in your hair, everything. Yeah. So I think I would now want to give it to Ravi, because he's made one very strong comment, and what would your message be? Should I look at charismatic species, or should I look at all the small tiny plants and insects? So what do you give a message?
No, it's a wrong question to ask. You don't study species in isolation. My PhD supervisor was Dr. John Singh, India's first trained wildlife biologist, and about 3 or 4 months into my field work, he came, and the first things he started asking me when we went out in the field was not about lions. It was about plants. And I failed. So he said, I'll give you 3 months, learn your flora, I'll come back. If you don't know your plants, you pack your bags and come back. So while he might have my be sympathetic to me because I studied lions, I studied more than lions. And not just for my PhD, but subsequently. And conservation is not about species. It's about habitats. It's about ecosystems. If you don't have habitats, if you don't have ecosystems, how will species survive? Vantara is not the answer. Okay? How much ever hype, how much ever PR, how much ever social media, it's illegal. It's a shame on this country, and it needs to be condemned and talked about, despite what stamp Supreme Court has given it. I'm sorry I kind of went off track, but it just in the stream of things came up. In terms of I wouldn't call it a message, but the way I see, and I teach a lot, so these are threads that come through that. First and foremost, take interest. You have to take interest not in a species, but take interest in a place. Take ownership for a place. It might be your backyard, it might be the local park, it might be a pond, a lake, or a national park. Take interest in a place. That means you're taking interest in its holistic, comprehensive way. So you know over time what are the threats it's facing, how it's improving, how it's deteriorating. So that taking interest should involve documentation, taking photographs, writing about it, speaking about it, knowing who's responsible for its management, trying to influence that management. So taking interest, informing yourself. It's great to think that we are experts, but in conservation, each of us is an expert depending on the perspective and our exposure. So form your own opinions. Next thing is take responsibility. Don't expect somebody else to conserve it. Each of us, I mean, who doesn't want fresh air? Who doesn't want clean water? Who doesn't want nice natural scenery? Who doesn't want our species to thrive? So don't expect the Ravi Chellam or Dr. Ramani to come and save it. Take responsibility. Demand accountability. It's still a democracy, and I hope at least till I die it remains a democracy, if not going forward. So demand accountability. Speak up. Keeping quiet is not going to change the world. Speak up. Speak up in your own small ways. Speak up with your parents, your siblings, your friends. We discuss cricket, films, dress, fashion, jewelry, food. When do we discuss conservation? Not in rooms like this. It should become part of our daily routine of conversation. If you're informing yourself, look at the fascinating information she was sharing. You know, go back home and try and convey some other information in your social circles. I think that is where the momentum has to build. Thank you.
Thank you. Well said, Ravi. I think just that on a Sunday morning, having so many people here itself is a testament that there are people who are interested, who want to do something about nature, who I think want to take action in whatever their small way. So Kobita, what is your message? Like, small, especially for all the things which people don't look at, like he said, charismatic species, or he talked about turtles and tortoises, but plants and insects and something which you have been exploring. So what is your message to people who may want to learn more about that?
I think, you know, you have to have a childlike fascination and curiosity. Because insects are, I think, the favorites of children. And just observing them will lead you to, you know, looking at other things. So it's the other way around for me. I look at the plants. Also because I think to begin with, it was beauty. I was looking with my senses. Smell, feel, and of course, you know, how beautiful or pretty it looked. And then when you look closer, it gets even better, right? So the small stuff really fascinated me. Whether it was a flower, I mean, from a tree maybe, but I would look very closely at it, right? So structures and, you know, it's like, it's an elixir. It really works on you once you start looking. That's all you have to do. And just appreciate it for whatever it is. You don't have to be a conservationist. You don't have to become a naturalist. Like, that doesn't have to be the goal, right? You build your connect and look for the connections, because everything is connected. And that is important. Once you realize those connections, ask yourself, I mean, the curiosity and the questions that arise from being out there. And that is very important. You cannot do that just by sitting around and, you know, reading something. It's lovely, I know. You know, I grew up looking at, you know, reading National Geographic, watching David Attenborough, blah. But it's that thing of being out there, anywhere, in your backyard, as like everyone else said. It's just anywhere, right here. And look for those connections, think about them, ask the questions. It's your curiosity that will fuel, that interest, and it'll just take over. It just works on you. It's amazing. Right? It gives you so much energy. I lose track of time. I'm not hungry. The sun, however hot it is, doesn't bother me. Nothing. So that fascination, if you just get hooked on that, I think that'll, it'll take care of the rest. Yeah, I think that's it.
I think, Ravi, you want to say?
Yeah, I should have said this earlier. Nature is not asking to be conserved. You leave nature alone, nature will do fine. We create the problem, and then we wear the savior kind of helmet and say, we want to conserve. So how do we deal with that? By not taking actions which destroy, degrade, fragment nature. And that is not the role of the conservationists. That's the role of the civil engineer, the IAS Babu, the private developer, the mining company. So bulk of the conservation work is to be really done by the non-conservation sector rather than the conservation sector. The conservation sector can help, provide technical assistance, and all that kind of stuff. But if you take the right decisions, take the right actions, stick to the law, which unfortunately in this country is becoming rarer and rarer, I think the world would just be a better place.
That's a great message, Ravi. And I think before we open the floor to questions, last parting shot from Rohit.
Yeah, I have two things to say. One is, considering my own example where, if I hadn't discovered that I have a hearing problem, I would never have taken bats seriously. I would have ended up becoming just another ornithologist among a sea of ornithologists with no identity of my own. But
Right in front of two stalwarts.
I am still a bird watcher, so I'm just not a bird researcher. But at the same, so sometimes, knowing your own disability can actually lead to very interesting possibilities. Another great example of this is a person who some of you might know called Zishan Mirza, who's, who has a pigmentation problem. He's an albino, which means that he can't be in the sunshine for too long, and he gets sunburnt very easily. But by just changing his activity to a nocturnal activity, he's ended up discovering 100-odd species of spiders, snakes, lizards, etc., scorpions. So, so all of these, it's a very remarkable use of, of a conversion of one's own disability to, building your own identity. The second thing is, I personally, and this we can debate about this whenever, but I personally don't believe in having role models. It's just something I don't like. But so it is, of course, very humbling when people come up to me or somebody else and say that we look up to you. It is very humbling. But at the same time, we are all people with our own limitations. And for me, I think it's the best when I like to look at different nice things in different people, collect them, and generate an AI-generated role model of everybody's qualities. So try to I think having this role model also prevents you from seeing the bad in people. But I think it's a very important thing to learn how to do.
Great. So I think we've got a lot of interesting insights from what all these four eminent panelists have done. And I'm sure you're all curious to know more. But I think we have time for about 4 or 5 questions. Shreyash?
Would you like to combine all the questions at once? Is that?
Yeah, we can. Right, okay. So that, so maybe you can give the mic to Ashwin, who's right there behind. Okay, there's one first, and then Ashwin will come to you later.
Good afternoon, all. I am Samit Singh. I have 2 questions. We are talking about...
You have only one question.
Oh, okay. So, we are motivating our youngster to do field like in our backyard, backyard watching. So in curiosity, that youngster will handle that insects or any such small creatures. So most of the animals don't like human touches. So how do we manage that human touches things? Because they avoid human interaction.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, the most important thing, I think, if you're human. Oh, I'm sorry.
You have to wait.
Hi. Apart from not taking a shower, I guess, the other, I think his point was, we are an ecosystem ourselves, which is great. My dad was saying, let's not take a shower. So anyway, I wanted to say a large percentage of the room has a lot of conservationists working in the field, in the profession of conservation. And my dear friend over here from the corporate world said, how do you make money? So I wanted to share that question. How do we make money? Simple. So sharing that.
There's one question here, yeah. That's the
What
third.
about the side of the room? You partial here?
There's one there.
Hi, I'm a doctor by profession. So I think Vantara is an ESG for the oil that they are making all over the world. So it's like, create Vantara and it's...
What is the question?
What's your question?
the question is Vantara good or bad?
Bad. That's easy. B-A-D, capital letters.
Yeah.
I think Ravi sir mentioned that he contemplated becoming an officer for the Indian Forest Department and said that he might not fit that mold. If you have interacted with the department during the course of your career, would you say that the mold has expanded in some way? Have we awarded more power and autonomy to be able to create more change from that avenue? And an open question to the entire panel about whether there are avenues for collaboration with the forest departments to share your findings, to influence any kind of local policy. Are there any programs that are actively available? Because it's instinctive to want your government to be able to help you. So when you look for such options, are there any available? Thank you.
There are 4 questions, I think. We'll first take those and, yeah.
Yeah.
First to Kobita, then Ravi, and then...
The first thing, I think, if we have grown up in, in the natural surroundings like I did, I'm 60, so way back. I think the first things you learn is to observe, not to handle, right? I mean, that natural instinct, I think, is there to, you want to go forward, but you don't, right? Of course, the second thing is just to know, and we do tell the children, whom we take on walks or the ones whom we take the activity for, we do tell them, look first, observe, don't touch, because yes, there can be issues, so you want to stay safe. So I'm thinking that, if you have your instincts in place, perhaps you won't go grabbing things, but yeah, nowadays you can never tell, we're so far removed. So I think parental, don't scare them. That's an unfortunate fallout of, these days, people being so fearful of everything. I think understanding is required first, and then, only then you can, I think, move forward safely. I don't know. I don't have an answer, but if I come across children, I always do that. Because once in a while, I have an insect on my hand as well. And I do tell them that, don't do this. There's a way to do this. First know and then, yeah.
Yeah, I'll just compliment that. It's not just about you handling, it's also what you step on. You need to be careful when you walk around, watch where you walk, where you put your feet. And it's actually not too bad to have an occasional thorn piercing you or an insect biting you. I mean, we don't care about, traffic accidents which are happening dime a dozen every minute. But, I mean, that's part of growing up. That's part of your experience. To answer the doctor's question, the answer is very clear. It's completely bad. I even said it's illegal if you really want to know. I'll take your email ID. I can send you dozens of stuff to read. Okay, we'll deal with that later. To answer the money question, I'm pretty overweight, right? I've been doing about 40 years of work in this field, and I don't remember when I last went hungry to bed. 30% of India goes hungry to bed every night. So conservation can't be such a bad profession where, I get food on the table. I still have to work. I don't have pension. So if I stop working, I have a problem. Hopefully, I'm still employable. But if you are innovative enough, if you are engaging enough, if you are humble enough, and not looking at some task as menial, the field has enough and more opportunities, especially today compared to 1980 when I started. So hats off to my parents, eldest son, who wanted to study wildlife. They didn't put any barriers. But if you want a more nuanced discussion, I'm happy to have it over lunch. To the young girls, young ladies, question on, two questions really, about fitting the mold. Fitting the mold was more my personality business because I wanted to do wildlife. But a forest officer can one day be social forestry, which is planting, can manage a zoo, can become head of personnel or finance, could just be a desk job. I didn't want to deal with that. I really wanted to be in the field. Of course, there's the other personality issue that I don't suffer fools very well. And if you work in the government, that's a thick skin you need to develop to be able to work with your colleagues. On the question of sharing, influencing policy, I do that every day. I mean, if you are into conservation, you have no business but to communicate, but to engage with government. That's just, it's like brushing your teeth in the morning. You have to learn, you have to develop your contacts. Don't get me wrong, the government has some brilliant people, some excellent people. They're also citizens of this country. They care deeply for this country. We get only the bad news out. We never hear about the good news. And that goes with conservation also. How many times do you hear that tiger cubs or elephant calves are born? You hear it when they die. You don't hear it when they are born. So don't just go by the media headlines. And there are increasingly specialized ways of policy influence, working with government, but there are also barriers because the bureaucracy is slightly different from the political class, and the bureaucracy reports to the political class. I don't need to expand more than that as to what the issues there will be. Thank you.
I want to speak. Yeah. So in the contrast, like what he has is way far different from my own experience. So what if I just quit my full-time job and you come to conservation? You will starve. For a while, definitely, indeed, you will starve. Because why do you think Rohit or me are so skinny? Right? Why do you think we are so skinny? When we have our own reasons.
I started at 800 rupees a month. Okay?
Yeah. Why do you think we are so skinny? So, like, even till 2019, I used to have full-time job and I had some good earnings. Everything is well and good. But since then, when you come to conservation, it's a very costly hobby that I ever took into hands, and it doesn't end up with few thousand or few lakhs. It's for some conservation projects, you need crores and crores of rupees. So definitely when you're quitting your full-time job, when you have a retired parents at your home, when you are at my age or 35 or 36 and when you wanted to start a family at this late age, so all these things come together. You have so many viabilities that you need to see. But definitely, if you're in a right path, you're doing a right cause, there are 1,001 people who wants you to help you, who wants to take you to the heights that you truly deserve. Yeah, I want to conclude in that way. Yeah.
So I'm sure there are always different viewpoints. Dr. Rahmani would like to make a comment. There you go. There you go, Sujeeth. So please meet Dr. Rahmani.
Turtle Survival Alliance, now the name has been changed. They are working on turtles, dolphins, and other things. On 29th is a meeting, a board meeting. Give me your CV, I'll put it there. Okay?
That's
then
brilliant.
You won't be skinny after that.
So we have one job assured today. And So I think that's the success of this panel, one job assured. And so I thank Kobita, Ravi, Rohit, Sujeeth for this brilliant session. And thank you to Shreyas and Urvi for organizing this, this particular initiative, climate conservation. And you can have many more conversations about conservation outside, because I think we've passed our time for lunch. I'm sure the stomach is growling for food after the thought. So thank you once again for joining, and be around.